Hello friends! It is finally November 1st and the beginning of Neurovember, and I'm so excited to be picking my first read for the readathon. I've created the little TBR jar. It's my first time actually doing a TBR jar, so I'm very excited. And let's do our first pick. A romance featuring a neurodivergent character. Okay, I think the Olivie Blake novel that I was planning to buddy read with, Cat, would work for that. Let me check. Okay, yeah, I'm just checking the book. It's Alone with You in the Ether by Olivie Blake, and the Amazon page, it says Alone with You in the Ether, a love story. So I think for a romance featuring neurodivergent character, this would be perfect. I stayed up way too late last night to read this book. I am 40% in and I'm loving it so far. There are 6 parts in the book and I've read the first 2. The first one was quite interesting, a bit disorientating in a way, because you have those kind of screenplay-like inserts, which is very unusual, and so far I have a theory, but I'm still not fully sure what they were there for. But the impression getting into the book was very much that someone way smarter than me is behind the wheel and I should just kick back, relax and trust them and see where they take me. It was also interesting, that feel from the very beginning of the book, kind of the prologue / first part as well, that you have a very competent and in charge kind of narrator, or like you have several narrators in the first part, but this feeling that the person writing the story really knows everything that will happen and that is happening, and they know the ins and outs. And obviously a writer writing a book, when they get to the editing stage, at least should know everything that will happen, but you don't get that strong of a feeling usually, because you are slowly getting into the story, you're looking out for clues and just like situating yourself, peeling slowly the different layers of the story. Whereas in this book, you're very much thrown in, and there are mentions of like you don't really understand fully what's being referred to because you don't have that kind of omniscient knowledge. So that was quite an interesting style and start to the novel. Then you move on into part 2, which I loved. I think it was excellent. I love the writing style. I think it's very beautiful, even though not necessarily in that traditional kind of purple way. I think it's more in the precision and the way the author manages to imply a lot of things and still make it very clear and very evident. So I think it's just all stitched in a very precise way, which I really enjoy. I'm also loving the characters, just both neurodivergent, very complex and interesting characters. I love Aldo's character. I think he's very clearly coded as autistic and HIP, but at the same time he has kind of non-traditional sides to him. Just the fact that he is riding a motorcycle, that he's a boxer, all those kind of things are not usually the way that autistic people are depicted. So I thought that was really cool. And just the story is lovely. There were a few scenes that I really loved and got excited about, and I think I'm gonna think about them quite a lot. And so the subtitle of this book is clearly a love story, so you know there is a romance. That's the whole premise, and I don't usually like romance that much. Romance is usually not my go-to genre because it tends to feel too formulaic for my liking, but I've read a few of them, and reading this I was very much feeling that I don't want to read another romance after this, because this one so far is just perfect. I'm really loving it. And again, I think the writing is excellent. The story is interesting. The characters are complex. They feel very real. I love the dialogue. I love their banter and just how the conversations stack up on themselves, like build from little pieces that have been told before. So yeah, it's been a very exciting read so far, and I'm really pleased that Kat got me to read this book. I really hope it holds up until the end, but as we are at 40%, I am eating this up and loving it. I literally just finished Alone With You in the Ether by Olivie Blake, and I'm not sure what I think. I think I probably need a bit more time to process my thoughts, but I think part 2 was wonderful, and I think the rest of the book didn't hit as hard as this part. I thought, again, part 2 was amazing. There were scenes that had me kicking my feet and emotional and all of that, and after that it gets a bit too philosophical and metaphysical and convoluted. There is not much plot, and it's very much all that's happening in the heads of the characters, and it's fine. It's a very literary book, more than what I thought. I somehow expected a speculative book, which it isn't. So I think that also played a role in it. I wasn't expected straight up literary fiction. But yeah, I think overall I liked it. I will forever love part 2. But yeah, the rest wasn't as mind-blowing. I think the author knows how to write. Like, she is an excellent writer. But at times there were some narrative devices that felt a bit gimmicky to me, because I couldn't really understand why they were absolutely necessary for the story. So it might be a lack of understanding on my part. I missed something. I didn't have the astuteness to understand what she was trying to do with those narrative devices. Or it can be just a little like she found it funny and she wanted to do it that way, and it's fine, but for me it should always serve the story, and I didn't really understand how it was doing that. So I really like her writing, but again, there were some aspects of it that felt a bit artificial, or again, like a bit gimmicky in some ways. At some point I was like, oh, can it really qualify as a romance story? Because again, romance has very clear expectations, very clear tropes and all of that, and this is much more literary. But I think it still can, and that was almost disappointing. Maybe that's a bit of a spoiler territory, so if you don't want any spoilers, you can just skip ahead. I will have a little mark over here. But yeah, we get that kind of last act fight, or just like, are they gonna be together or aren't they? Well, in a romance, you know they are gonna be. And in kind of the part 3 and 4, maybe, or part 4 and 5, maybe, like you wonder a little bit, is it gonna happen? Like, will they have a happy ending? And then the fight happens, and I was just like, where is this, like the way it's happening, like the actual unfolding of it, I was just like, where is this coming from? This felt weird and a bit forced, and the resolution as well felt a bit just like, I don't know, easy. And I don't know, I felt like what I loved about the specificity of the characters, the wit, the banter, all of that kind of fizzled out a bit after part 2 somehow. I don't know if it's me, because it was like another day and my mood was different, and so I was receiving it differently. but you don't have dialogue in the same way that you have in part 2 in the rest of the book, and I missed that. It was very much, again, in the character's head, what they were thinking, just a lot of philosophical musings and all of that, and it felt a bit too much for me at some point. I was just like, yeah, it's just like overwhelming, just too convoluted, too much grandiose love. The way that Regan was talking about sex at one point, I was just like, nah, I was just like, this is too much, borderline syrupy. So yeah, I really don't know how I feel about it at this point. It's very fresh in my mind, and I think, yeah, the summary is I absolutely loved part 2 and the rest was fine. That's where I'm at now. But I will do like the recap video at the end of the month about all the books that I read for Neurovember, and so once I have a bit more distance, maybe I have clearer thoughts about the book. Excitingly, it is now time to get our second pick of the month for Neurovember. Okay. A book that mixes genres or blurs boundaries. I do have the Tainted Cup on my shelves for this, but it's really not on my priority list because I have a crazy TBR for the end of the year and I was hoping to be able to pick something for that. Can I say that Six of Crows is mixing genres? I mean, I think so, because it's a heist story and a fantasy story. And when I hear Brandon Sanderson talk about Mistborn, who is also a heist story in a fantasy setting, it sounds like it was like very groundbreaking and really new. And I think we can probably read the same of Six of Crows. So I think I'm gonna start Six of Crows, but I will pick another prompt and see how I feel. A book that excites you. Well, let's pick Six of Crows. Let's go for it. I kind of want to do another one. I'm really enjoying the TBR jar, but I don't want to pick everything at the same time. I want to do one after the other, but I'm hoping to get an activity, so let's see. A quick read, a short book, novella, or graphic novel. This is perfect because I do have this book from the library. Not an activity, but should be fast enough that I can squeeze that in before picking up Six of Crows. And I think that would be a great palate cleanser. And it's a bit of a bonus because it's not on my end of year TBR, but it's a graphic novel. It should be fairly quick. So I'm gonna dive into this before Six of Crows. I haven't filmed an update in a few days now, so I wanted to wrap up this first week of Neurovember. Today is Saturday, 8th of November, and I am happy to report that I've read already 3 books for Neurovember. The first one was Alone with You in the Ether, that I already talked about quite a bit in this vlog. Then I read La Différence invisible, which is available in English under the title Invisible Differences. It's about a young woman who is struggling a bit in her life and has a hard time fitting in until she discovers that she is actually autistic. And so it's her journey into getting a diagnosis and understanding who she is and finally finding her voice and her place in the world. I read this in just one sitting. It was a very quick read. Didn't really learn anything new, but I always enjoy those kind of memoir/testimony and hearing about the experience of other neurodivergent people. There were quite a few bits that I could relate to, and so there is always something very comforting and finding your experience, or at least part of your own experience, reflected in a book. I really appreciated that. So again, even though it wasn't groundbreaking for me, I didn't really learn anything knew it was quite a nice read and I really appreciated it. So if it's something that you might be interested in, then I would highly recommend that you pick it up. Finally, I read Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I flew through this book. I read about 60 pages on the first day, then 160 pages on the second day, and today I spent my whole day reading almost, and I read 263 pages of this book, and I just finished it. And I do understand why it's so popular, what it is, a YouTube darling book. It is a heist fantasy story, and I thought it was really well done. I had a really fun time with it. Again, I pretty much inhaled the book. And yeah, I thought the cast of characters was really nice, really diverse, very well fleshed out. They all had different personalities, different skills. They complemented each other. You have this whole kind of found family build up, and the plot was very engaging, really fun. I loved all the different pieces and how things fit together, and how the whole book is as much about will they succeed in this heist, this impossible mission, as well as kind of discovering the past of the different characters and what motivates them and how they're changing through the whole experience. What are their wants, what are their needs, all of that. I thought, again, it was excellent. I don't really have much critiques of the book. It was a really fun time, and I already ordered Crooked Kingdom, which is the follow-up to this book. It's a duology. I should receive it in a few days, and I might have a hard time waiting until next year to read it. Honestly, I don't really have any intention to wait until next year, so I might have to swap this book for another one on my overly ambitious TBR for the end of the year, because I really want to read the second book. So yeah, those were the 3 books I read so far for Neurovember. I'm really curious to hear how it's going for you. Let me know in the comments if you've already read a book for the challenge, what you intend to pick up next, all of that. I'm very curious to know how things are going for you, so let me know in the comments. And stay tuned for next week's vlog. I'm about to pick out my next read because I'm just so excited. I can't wait, and I'm really enjoying the TBR jar. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.